It's always nice when another school gives Emory and Henry recognition as that school's history is recounted. And if the other school is a Division I school with as storied a history as the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, then the recognition might be something for which we would even be more greatly appreciative. If only the recognition included a mention that the Emory and Henry Wasp defeated the University of Tennessee Volunteers on the gridiron. But alas. However, there are many for whom the news that Emory and Henry has actually contested UT is received as shocking, but that, in fact, is the case. And in this year of the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the opening of Shields-Watkins Field on the campus of the University of Tennessee, it is significant to note further that the very first contest on that field, which would eventually be surrounded by Neyland Stadium, pitted Emory and Henry College against the University of Tennessee. The game was played on September 24, 1921, and even though it was the final Saturday of the month, it was the first game that both teams played. A September 25, 1921 article in the Knoxville Journal and Tribune, written by H.L. Lation, tells part of the story of that first game played on the now legendary Shields-Watkins Field this way. Under the headline, "Virginians Put Forth Plucky Effort," the Knoxville Journal and Tribune reported,
"It took two 15-minute periods for the Tennessee Steamroller to get up a significant head of steam yesterday to ramble roughshod over the plucky Emory and Henry Wasp for a 27-0 victory in the opening game of the season. Despite a persistent drizzle that fell throughout the morning and up until the time play was called, more than 1,200 spectators swarmed into the stands at the new Shields-Watkins Stadium to see the University of Tennessee machine in its first test of the season."
The article goes on to give the highlights of this first ever game on the Shields-Watkins Field, noting that while UT substituted rather freely from its depth on the bench, Emory and Henry only made 2 substitutions in the entire game, and offering the observation that
more than a score of men were used by Tennessee, and in the second half, the pummeling of the comparatively light visitors were compelled to accept at the hands of their heavier opponents told heavily. Still, the Journal and Tribune gave tribute to the Emory and Henry line, which consisted of Hines, Dickinson, Hall, Edens, Wiley, Weaver, and Williams, when it reported that it is a fact that in the first quarter, the Emory and Henry linemen were outcharging the volunteer defense.
The article concludes the highlights of the games by indicating that while the fourth quarter was scoreless,
it afforded Emory and Henry its only favorable chance to avoid the smirch of a whitewash. The ball was advanced inside Tennessee's 27-yard line, and Captain Weaver, who had previously been removed from the game because of injuries, was recalled to try a placement. The ball was wet, however, and it sailed low and wide. The Virginians had lost their only opportunity to score. The game ended shortly thereafter with the final score standing Tennessee 27, Emory and Henry nothing.
In a box set within the article, Coach Fullerton, the Emory and Henry head coach, gives this assessment of the game and of his team's performance.
"I am well pleased with the showing made by my boys today. I had hoped to do better than we did last year, and this hope was realized. It is unfortunate that our ends and secondary defense were sucked away from the play by the 3 sneak formations that accounted for so many Tennessee touchdowns. As I said, I'm well pleased with the showing made by Emory and Henry, and we have no alibis to offer."
The fact that this opening game of the 1921 season was played on a brand new field that would eventually become one of the great arenas of college football, a stadium which now holds a capacity of 102,455, makes the first contest more significant, and one which, while in the opinion of the Knoxville sports writer was mediocre, is still historic. And the Emory and Henry Wasps are part of that history. So congratulations to the University of Tennessee Volunteers and all the alumni of that school on the 100th anniversary of the first game played on the Shields-Watkins Field, now encompassed by Neyland Stadium. And congratulations to the Emory and Henry teams and alumni for the grand history of competition established here more than 100 years ago. We are glad to be able to tell a part of the story of that legacy. And by the way, in case you're wondering how the two teams have fared recently, well, last season the University of Tennessee had a winning percentage in its football season of 333%, while Emory and Henry's winning percentage was 750%. Hail Emory!
Support for Emory and Henry in sports history comes from Grico's Grill and Cafe. More information at getgricos.com.